Saturday mornings used to be my reset button, no meetings, no client calls, no deadlines. Just the hum of the coffee machine, a quiet house, and the smell of cinnamon toast if I was lucky. That morning, I wasn't supposed to be home. I was covering a shift for a coworker, but we got rained out early. I figured I'd surprise Melissa with takeout from her favorite brunch spot. Thought it might break some of the tension that had been building between us lately. When I opened the front door, the house was too quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that makes you stop walking mid-step. It's hard to describe unless you've felt it, that pressure in the air like you walked in on something that had just ended. Or was still happening, just out of sight. I kicked off my shoes and moved toward the kitchen, holding the takeout bag in one hand. That's when I noticed it, something on the hallway table that didn't belong. A watch box. Not just any watch box. This was the kind of packaging that doesn't belong in our world. Melissa and I aren't flashy people. We've always been more about function than status, Target mugs, IKEA furniture, practical sedans. This box, though? It practically whispered wealth. Matte black with gold accents, logo embossed with precision. The kind of thing that costs more than a month's rent when you open it. Next to it, a handwritten note folded neatly in half. My name wasn't on it, but something about it made my stomach flip before I even touched it. I set the food down and picked up the note. You earned this for that night. That was it. No signature. No context. Just a single sentence that suddenly made everything else in the house feel colder. I stood there frozen, rereading the words. I didn't know what that night meant, but I knew one thing for sure: it wasn't my night. That's when Melissa walked in. She stopped when she saw me standing there with the note in my hand. I expected panic. Maybe guilt. But instead, I got composure. That calm, collected look she always gave clients at networking events. Just a flicker of surprise, quickly smoothed over. Oh, she said, as casually as if I'd picked up a receipt. That's for Carter. My boss. The team all chipped in. Just a little thank you gift for helping us land the Ridgeway account. I didn't say anything. I just watched her as she moved past me and picked up the box like it was no big deal. Her fingers ran over the top of it briefly, almost too fondly. I forgot it was still in my bag. Meant to drop it off at the office Monday. I nodded slowly. Not because I believed her, but because I hadn't yet decided what to believe. She didn't meet my eyes after that. Just turned toward the kitchen. I watched her from behind, thinking how strange it was that she hadn't asked why I was home. Or even acknowledged the takeout still sitting on the entryway bench. Then she sat down at the table, clasped her hands together, and said it. Just like that. I think we should get divorced. I blinked. For a second, I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. What? She didn't repeat it. Just stared at the center of the table as if the wood grain might soften the blow. I've been thinking about it for a while, she added. We've grown apart, Alex. We're not the same people we were. I stood there with 1,000 things trying to come out of my mouth at once. Hurt, anger, confusion. But none of it made it past my lips. Because all I could think about was the note. The box. You earned this for that night. I wasn't thinking about divorce. I was thinking about something else entirely. You've been thinking about it for a while? I finally managed to say. Since when? She shrugged, her eyes still not meeting mine. A few months. Maybe longer. My heart thudded hard in my chest. So all those work trips, the late nights, She looked up at me finally. Don't. This isn't about anyone else. I hadn't even said it. But the words hung in the air like a confession anyway. She stood up then, brushing past me again like this was just another casual conversation. I'll stay at my sister's for a few days. We'll talk through the logistics later. I didn't stop her. I didn't argue. I didn't even ask if she'd packed yet. I just stood there, alone in our house, holding a crumpled note and wondering how I hadn't seen this coming. But deep down I had. Not the specifics, not the note or the watch or the sudden divorce proposal. But something had been rotting beneath the surface of our marriage for a while. And I'd ignored it. Dismissed the silences. The subtle changes. The way she'd stopped laughing at my dumb jokes or stopped asking me how my day was. I walked over to the couch and sat down, my mind replaying every moment from the last 6 months in fast forward. The sudden push to go on solo weekend retreats for mental clarity. The way she'd started locking her phone screen more often, how she always smiled a little too widely when texting. How she stopped asking me to meet her coworkers at social events. I chalked it up to stress. Workload. Burnout. The same excuses we always give ourselves to avoid the truth. But that box on the hallway table? That was real. It was tangible. Unavoidable. A small, expensive nail in the coffin of my denial. I picked up the note again. Read it one more time. You earned this for that night. And something inside me shifted. If Melissa wanted a divorce, fine. Maybe she was right. Maybe we had grown apart. Maybe this marriage had run its course. But she didn't get to walk away clean. Not after that note. Not after all the lies hiding behind professional smiles and vague excuses. As she packed her things upstairs, I didn't follow. I didn't try to argue or beg or plead. I just sat there and began putting the pieces together. She thought she was ending the story. But I had just started reading the real one. After Melissa left, the house felt different, not quieter, just emptier. Like her absence had ked the air out of the place. I didn't move for a long time. Just sat on the couch, staring at the hallway where that black watch box had been. My mind kept coming back to that note. You earned this for that night. 8 words that unraveled almost 8 years of marriage. The strange thing was I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry, not yet. What I felt was clarity. Cold, sharp clarity. Like my brain had just snapped out of a fog and everything I'd overlooked suddenly came into focus. And that's when it started. I began mentally rewinding the last several months, running through every moment, every detail I'd brushed off as nothing. But now nothing felt like nothing. Everything had a second meaning. Take her weekend work trips. They had started sometime in early spring. At first, it made sense. Her office was expanding into Dallas and she claimed she had to help onboard the new hires. But looking back, she always seemed a little too excited for those trips. Always packed her bags with care, chose outfits she never wore around me. I remembered once joking, "You dressing for the clients or a runway?" She laughed it off. But she never really answered. Then there was the new lingerie. I'd found it while doing laundry one evening, a set I didn't recognize, tucked in with her usual stuff. I remember standing there, holding the delicate fabric between my fingers, confused. We hadn't been in made in weeks. Maybe months. When I asked her about it later, carefully, without suspicion, she just said it was on sale. Just something new for myself. Now I realized it wasn't for herself. It was never meant for me either. Her phone habits had shifted, too. I remember when she used to scroll through Instagram next to me in bed, laughing at memes and tagging me in dumb videos. Somewhere along the line, the screen started facing away. Her laughter became quieter. More private. If I leaned over or glanced her way, she'd lock the phone. Once, I asked who she was texting and she smiled, that practiced smile I'd seen too many times, and said, "Just work stuff." Always work stuff. Her browser history vanished regularly. At first, I chalked it up to auto-cleaning apps. But one night, I noticed she'd cleared it in the middle of the day. There was no reason for it unless she didn't want me seeing what she'd been searching. The whispers on the balcony were the hardest to ignore now. Almost every night, around 10 or 11, she'd step outside to get some air and be on the phone, murmuring so low I couldn't make out the words. One night, I quietly opened the sliding door just enough to hear her say, "I miss you too." Then she laughed, a soft, mate laugh I hadn't heard in months. I closed the door without saying a word. At the time, I convinced myself she was venting to a friend. Maybe her sister. Maybe someone from work. Someone safe. But now? I knew better. Then there was the 2 a.m. showers. I'd wake up to the sound of running water and find the bathroom door locked. She said she was just restless, that showers helped her relax. But sometimes I'd hear the faint buzz of her phone through the door, like she was texting someone while the water ran. All these little things, each one by itself, could have meant nothing. But together? They formed a pattern. A trail of crumbs she thought I'd never notice. And she was right, I hadn't. Not until now. I got up from the couch and walked to our bedroom, my bedroom now, and sat at the edge of the bed. I looked around at the framed pictures, the shared books on the shelf, the pair of toothbrushes in the cup by the sink. It all felt fake now. Staged. Like the set of a play that had ended weeks ago and no one bothered to tell me. I remembered the night she got promoted. We had gone out to celebrate and she was practically glowing. I'd never seen her that excited. She kept getting texts all evening, and each time she looked at her screen, she smiled to herself, not at me. I asked who was blowing up her phone. She said it was her team. That they were just hyped about the bonus. I believed her. But now that I thought about it, her boss, Carter, had been at that dinner, too. And I remembered the way he looked at her across the table. Not just admiration. Something more. And worse? She looked back. Back then, I ignored it. Told myself I was being insecure. Funny thing about hindsight, it's brutal and honest in a way your heart never is in the moment. I laid back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. My heart wasn't broken yet, it was still processing. What I felt was suspicion turned into certainty. A truth I didn't ask for but couldn't unlearn. Melissa hadn't just decided on divorce overnight. She had been preparing for it. Testing the waters. Soft launching a new life while keeping one foot in the old. Every lie she told, every red flag I missed, they were rehearsals for this exit. And maybe the watch wasn't just a gift. Maybe it was a thank you in the literal sense for a night she never wanted me to know about. I sat up and stared at her side of the closet. Her scent still clung to her clothes, faint and floral. But I didn't feel longing. I felt something else resolve. She had made her move. Now it was my turn to start figuring out mine. I didn't plan on going through her stuff that night. Honestly, I didn't know what I was planning. After everything that had come rushing back to me, the lingerie, the phone calls, the 2 a.m. showers, my mind was a storm I couldn't shut off. I tried to sleep. I couldn't. Tried to read. Couldn't focus. Every page I turned reminded me of something I had missed, something she had hidden in plain sight. Around midnight, I got up, walked to the living room, and sat at the dining table where she had dropped the divorce bomb like it was just another Thursday night dinner topic. Her laptop was still there. She always said she didn't use it anymore. Too slow, she'd complain, flipping her tablet open instead or texting with that glazed look in her eyes. But something told me that wasn't the truth. Not anymore. I stared at it for a long moment. My heart was racing, not from fear, but anticipation. A part of me hoped I'd open it and find nothing, that I was wrong. That she was just unhappy. That she hadn't gone and become someone else. But another part of me, the part that read that note on the watch box, knew better. The laptop opened without a password. And just like that, I was inside. At first, it looked as she described, outdated, barely used. The desktop was clean, just a few folders labeled work, taxes, recipes. But that was just the surface. Within the work folder, buried under spreadsheets and fake project summaries, was a hidden folder with the most basic name, archive_21. And that's where I found it. Dozens of files. *TS. PDFs, message threads, voice notes, pictures. Some were named casually like Lunch WC or Project Ridge_notes, but it didn't take long to realize C wasn't a code for client. It was Carter. Her boss. The same Carter who supposedly received that expensive watch from the team. The same man I'd once shaken hands with at a networking mixer while Melissa introduced us, her eyes just a bit too bright, her laughter just a bit too generous. The first messages I found were harmless enough. Office chatter. Nice pitch today, thanks for the help, that sort of thing. But then they shifted. Quickly. I keep thinking about last night. You're impossible to ignore. Meet me at the same hotel? Rooms booked. I scrolled until my hand felt numb. Each message chipped away at the version of her I'd believed in. The woman I married. The one who once called me her best friend. The hotel receipts were there, too, same boutique place she said her firm used for events. The irony wasn't lost on me. A whole second life funded partly by her shared bank account. A whole history recorded in carefully typed messages, emails signed off with "let's keep this just between us," especially after that night. There it was again, that night. I opened the file titled "Thank You Draft." It was an email she had written but never sent, addressed to Carter. I still can't believe how bold we were. But I guess you're right, nobody suspects a thing. Thank you for the gift. You didn't have to. You already gave me more than enough that night. I sat there frozen. It was worse than cheating. It was investment. Time, energy, lies, logistics, all poured into another man like she was planning a merger. And the worst part? She wasn't reckless. She was methodical. Thoughtful. Efficient. Professional. I wasn't dealing with a fling. I was staring into the bones of an affair that had lived in shadow for nearly a year. There was even a shared document, a literal checklist, that included things like hotel keys, get duplicates. Work dinner cover story, update calendar. Avoid photos, especially with coworkers. Revisit apartment plan after promotion? The promotion. Of course. Now it all made sense. The sudden leap in her title. The massive bonus. The odd timing. She used to tell me how competitive her department was, how women had to fight twice as hard for half as much. And now I understood what she meant. She didn't climb the ladder. She skipped steps on someone else's back. I opened one more file. A voicemail. It was Carter's voice, low and quiet like he was hiding in a stairwell. Just checking in. That night was unreal. You know I'd do anything for you. But we gotta be careful. Don't mention anything to anyone at the office, especially after what you said about your husband. I don't want any drama. You're too important. Too important. I wanted to throw the laptop across the room. But I didn't. I just sat there, letting the numbness settle in like a second skin. There was no shock. No tears. Just silence. And this strange sense of release. Because now I knew. No more guessing. No more gaslighting myself into believing I was insecure or paranoid. This was real. She hadn't just betrayed me in a moment of weakness. She had chosen this, planned it, nurtured it, and now she was trying to cash out with a clean divorce, no questions asked, no messy explanations. She thought I'd nod, sign the papers, maybe even hug her goodbye like some tragic, civilized gentleman. But that wasn't going to happen. I looked at the laptop screen one more time, took **TS of every message thread, every receipt, every file. Backed it up to a drive. Labeled the folder with the same cold efficiency she used, evidence. When I was done, I closed the laptop, turned off the light, and sat in the dark for a while. Not because I was broken, but because I was done playing the fool. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the start of hers falling apart. By sunrise, I had a plan. The anger never came the way I expected. No shouting, no smashing things. Just something cooler. A calm that came not from forgiveness, but from clarity. I'd been lied to, manipulated, and discarded, and I wasn't going to let that end with me signing papers like a man too weak to ask questions. Melissa wanted to end this quietly. She thought if she used just the right words, "We've grown apart, it's mutual, let's stay civil," I'd walk away with my pride and let her keep the pieces she stole. But now I had the full picture. And I was going to make sure she saw it too, every last shard. The first thing I did was call a lawyer. A sharp, no-nonsense guy named Corwin I'd met through a friend years ago. I never imagined I'd need him, but there I was, dialing his number with a new kind of purpose. He answered on the second ring. "Corwin, it's Alex Hill. I need to retain you. It's urgent." 10 minutes later, we were on a call and I laid it all out. The affair. The evidence. The sudden divorce demand. I didn't need sympathy. I needed legal firepower. Corwin's voice didn't waver. "You've got a strong hand. If the apartment's in your name and you've got proof of infidelity, she doesn't walk away with anything you don't allow." That was exactly what I needed to hear. Before Melissa got back, I got to work. I printed out a copy of the prenup we signed 5 years ago, her idea, ironically. She'd insisted it was just a precaution. That she didn't care about my assets, just peace of mind. Well, now it was giving me peace of mind. Line 12, Section C. Any property acquired prior to the marriage remains the sole and separate possession of the original title holder. That included the apartment. Our apartment. The one she moved into after we married. I paid every dime of it off before we even said "I do." She always knew that, but she assumed I'd forgotten. Next, I logged into her joint bank account. My hands didn't shake. Not this time. I moved every dollar of my earnings into a separate personal account that she didn't have access to. Legally, it was within my rights. I wasn't hiding the money, I was protecting it. I left her half of what she'd contributed in the account. Nothing more. She could have the illusion of control. I also changed the passwords to all shared utilities and online services. She'd left them logged in too many times. I wasn't locking her out, not yet, but I wasn't giving her the power to blindside me either. Every little thing she'd used to make this place hers, I untangled. Then I packed her things. All of them. I started with the closet. Her dresses, her blouses, the shoes she swore were for interviews but wore on weekends when she disappeared for hours. I folded everything with more care than she probably deserved. I didn't want her saying I'd ruined anything. Box after box, I filled the garage. Her yoga mat. Her art supplies. Her favorite mugs. Even the framed photos of us, the ones she stopped updating 2 years ago. All neatly labeled, sealed, and stacked in one corner. The last thing I boxed was the watch, the one from Carter. I left the note inside, folded and placed gently on top. She could decide whether to keep it or burn it. By the time I was done, it was nearly evening. I changed the passcode on the garage keypad and waited. She came home around 7:15. I heard the car before I saw it, the soft hum of tires. She always parked crooked in the driveway. She walked through the door like nothing had changed. A light jacket draped over her arm, phone in hand. Her eyes widened a fraction when she saw me standing by the kitchen table. "Hey," she said cautiously. "I didn't think you'd be here. You didn't ask." There was a pause. Just a beat too long. Then she smiled like this was some awkward roommate situation. "Look, I'm glad you're calm about this. I was worried it'd be weird." I tilted my head slightly. "Weird? You know," she said, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear, tense. "Hostile. I think it's really mature of us to just handle this like adults." I let the silence stretch. Then I walked to the counter and picked up the folder I'd printed that morning, bank statements, the prenup, and the first few pages of messages from her and Carter. I dropped it in front of her. Her smile faltered. "What's this?" "I figured we should lay everything out like adults," I said. She opened the folder. Her face didn't fall right away. Melissa was good at masking things, but this? She wasn't prepared for this. I watched her eyes scan the printouts. Watched the color drain slowly from her face. Then the inhale. Shallow. A tell. She closed the folder gently like it might explode. You went through my stuff, she said. No. I went through her house. You just happened to be hiding someone else in it. She didn't say anything. I continued, my tone even. The lawyer's name is Corwin. You'll be getting a call soon. He has everything. Messages, receipts, recordings. I didn't share them with HR, not yet. That depends on how hard you want to make this. She took a step back. Are you threatening me? I'm telling you where the line is. Melissa had always prided herself on control. On reading people. But now she was off script and it showed. She glanced toward the hallway, toward the bedroom, her old fortress. Where are my things? In the garage. Labeled. Safe. You'll find the watch too. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She didn't move. Just stood there, absorbing it all. The balance had shifted. She wasn't leading anymore. She was reacting. Alex, she started. No. You don't get to explain. You already said it all, in the emails, the bookings, the thank you notes. I didn't plan. You did. You just didn't expect me to find out. Her silence was answer enough. I stepped aside and pointed toward the front door. You should go. There was no scene. No crying. No slamming doors. She walked out without another word. And for the first time in months, the house didn't feel empty. It felt mine again. The first few days after I kicked her out, the silence was the loudest thing in the house. I thought I'd hate it. I thought I'd feel hollow, aimless, crushed by what was left behind. But instead, I found myself settling into the quiet like it was a warm coat I hadn't worn in years. Melissa's absence didn't feel like a loss. It felt like a clearing, like someone had finally walked out of a room they were only pretending to live in. But that calm didn't extend to her. It started slowly. A text that first night. Can we talk? Just 5 minutes. No games. Please. I didn't respond. I deleted it. That silence was the first boundary I drew, and I wasn't breaking it. The next day, she tried a different approach. I left a couple things in the closet. Would you mind if I came by to pick them up? I can wait outside. You won't even see me. That message I didn't delete. I forwarded it to Corwin, my lawyer, and he responded with exactly what I was thinking. She doesn't live there anymore. She forfeited residency by leaving voluntarily. You're under no obligation to let her back in. I sent that message word for word back to her. She didn't reply. But it was the third day when the cracks started to show. I caught her outside in the driveway around 9:30 p.m. sitting in her car. Lights off. Just parked there like a ghost unsure how to haunt. I didn't say anything. I just turned off the porch light and went back inside. The next morning, she was gone, but I found a note tucked under the mat. I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't think it would happen like this. Please, Alex. I'm scared. Scared? Of what? Not me. I'd never raised my voice to her, not once. She wasn't scared of my reaction. She was scared because the backup plan she thought she had wasn't coming through. Carter. He hadn't shown up. Maybe she thought he'd sweep in the moment she walked out of our marriage. Maybe she thought she was trading one life for another, effortless, smooth, calculated. But now the cracks in his story were beginning to show too. I knew the kind of man. I'd worked with his type. The charisma, the leader energy, the whispered promises when no one's watching. But when pressure shows up, those types vanish. And vanish he did. I didn't know the full story, but I knew enough. The promotion she thought she'd locked down? Suddenly under review. The HR rep she called a non-factor during our arguments? Suddenly asking questions. Office gossip works fast and messy, especially when it's about the boss and his married subordinate. She had rolled the dice. And now she was watching them scatter across the floor, praying they didn't land snake eyes. I started getting second-hand updates not from Melissa but from the few friends we had in common. One of them, Rachel, texted me with a vague, "Are you okay?" and followed up with, "She's not doing well. She's been couch hopping. Says she's just figuring things out, but she looks off." I didn't want to pick sides, but now I feel like I was lied to too. Even her friends were starting to pull back. Not because I poisoned the well, I never once reached out to them, but because they were finally seeing the version of her I'd been quietly living with for the past year. Melissa had always been good at curating her image. The confident one. The smart one. The funny, ambitious woman everyone admired. But once you take away the structure, the marriage, the house, the job security, what's left? Not much, apparently. I got another message. This one more direct. I just need a place to stay until I find something. 1 week. I won't even talk to you. I'll sleep on the couch or in the garage. Please. I didn't answer, but I did change the locks that afternoon. Legally, she had no rights to the property. Emotionally? Even less. That weekend, she came by again. I heard the rattle of her old keys in the front door. When they didn't work, she knocked. Then pounded. Then her voice cracked through the wood. Alex. Come on. Just open the door. 5 minutes. I didn't move. She kept knocking, pleading in short, clipped sentences like a telemarketer reading from a script. Then her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't have anywhere else. I stood just beyond the peephole, watching her silhouette shift under the porch light. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. She had been ready to dismantle my life from the inside out, carefully, quietly, efficiently, and now she stood outside the life she tried to leave like it was a shelter she suddenly remembered existed. When she left, I watched from the upstairs window. She got back into her car and sat behind the wheel for a long time, her forehead against the steering wheel. When the engine finally turned over and she drove away, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt finished. Later that night, I walked through the house slowly, one room at a time. I opened drawers she used to clutter. I pulled sheets off the bed she hadn't slept in for weeks. I stared at the clean kitchen counters and remembered the nights she used to hum while cooking, back before everything started to fade. I wasn't trying to romanticize her. I was just taking inventory of what was gone and what I'd started to recover in its place. Peace. Space. Room to rebuild. The next morning, another message came in. I messed everything up. Carter is gone. He told HR it was a misunderstanding. He won't even answer my calls now. They're talking about a transfer. Maybe worse. I don't know what to do. I stared at it for a while. That one I didn't delete. I archived it. I wanted the reminder. The reminder that she hadn't just cheated on me, she'd gambled on someone else while I was still fighting for us. She'd mortgaged our future on a man who saw her as a convenience. And now that she had no fallback, she was looking at me like I was the spare key she forgot to copy. But that lock was changed. Permanently. She had made her choice. And the collapse wasn't just personal.